Hi again, it's Jason from Fraser Valley Rose Farm, and I'm here today with another local nursery owner. This is Mark Stevens from Mark's Plants, aptly named, and I've joined him here on his backyard nursery where he's graciously agreed to show us around to all of his plants. Just for a bit of background, Mark and I know each other from the local farmers market, which of course has been disrupted greatly by the pandemic in the past couple of years, so each of us has found our own way forward in running our different nursery businesses. Mark is particularly known for having interesting edible plants. If it's fruiting, if it has an edible tuber, if it's an edible vine, if it's an edible shrub, he's probably grown it, and if he's liked it, then he offers it for sale here on his nursery. Thanks for showing us around, Mark.
Thank you. So this is Tayberry, a very tasty long fruit, fairly thorny, but well worth the effort of growing it. Even though it has so many thorns, the abundant fruit that it produces makes it well worth growing in your garden. Over here I have a mature plant that's a couple of years old, just to give you a rough idea how much fruit you can expect on a fairly young plant. Very vigorous growing, lots of flowers obviously before the fruit came. It was very colorful here.
So you got some trillium down there.
Yeah, they're past their prime. I mean, there's more here. All my trilliums I grow from seed. There's a lot of red Trillium erectum, which is the red trillium native to the east coast of Canada and the US. There's also some Arisaemas here, ringens, Arisaema ringens. That's the name of that shade-loving plant.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. This is my shady section, so some of my spring ephemerals are grown in this area.
Beautiful. Nice foliage on that.
Yeah, that's ginger, hardy ornamental ginger. These are a few ornamentals tucked in with my edible section. So these are angel trumpets. They're all wintered inside the greenhouse because they can take no frost in the colder period of time. So they'll have big flaring trumpets hanging down in the next month or so, and then they'll bloom right until the first. When we start to get really cold nights, they'll stop flowering and they'll go back in the greenhouse for the winter.
So do you heat your greenhouse then?
Did I say greenhouse? Because I meant garage.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Sorry. They totally go dormant. They defoliate. They go in the garage because my garage has a really high ceiling, so it can accommodate them. I just check them once a month for water to make sure they're not drying out. But all the leaves fall off. It gets almost to freezing inside the garage, and then I bring them out early spring as soon as there's no chance of frost and start them on their cycle again. One plant I like to propagate is hairless kiwi, which is the Kiwi arguta variety is acai. This is one of the few kiwis where you don't need a male and female, so you don't need to use a lot of space up in your garden. You just have one plant. It has male and female parts on each flower, and it's self-pollinating. So nice for smaller gardens where you can't afford the luxury of having space for two.
Perfect. I'm just going to take a bit of a wider shot here because I want to show everybody just how nicely laid out your area is here as a backyard nursery. I think you'd rival some of the commercial nurseries and just how beautiful and how many plants you have here. It's gorgeous. This is asparagus, I assume?
Yeah, I have two kinds of asparagus. This one is the green. It's Jersey Night, which is an all-male selection. So yes, it has flowers, but these won't get pollinated and you won't have seed production on this plant. All the energy is put into spear production. Versus over here, this is a purple variety called Sweet Purple. This one will have seeds. So even though it's 20% sweeter than the green variety, you do have that, you have a little bit less production because it does want to produce seeds.
And you're pretty well known locally for collecting all sorts of cool and interesting fruits and edibles.
Yeah, edibles. I'll just walk down this aisle. Yeah, these are Aronia. For a lot of European people, they know this and they like a more tart fruit and make jam with it. I find it interesting that different cultures appreciate different edible plants. And you know, I'll talk to some people about Aronia and they'll say, oh, that's no way, if it's tart, I'm not going to buy it or eat it. Where I talk to Europeans, they say, oh, I missed that from home, and they're really anxious to purchase one.
What's the other common name? Is that chokeberry or
chokecherry?
Chokecherry,
chokecherry, chokeberry. It's got many common names for it. Beautiful autumn foliage though. If nothing else, if you don't want it for the berries or to feed the birds, then you could plant that for brilliant oranges and red fall color. This is an interesting fruit. This is a gummy berry, the one with the red berries.
Beautiful.
Yeah, even though this spring I didn't have a lot of pollinators around, I was a little worried I wouldn't get fruit, but obviously it was pollinated very well. I guess I just wasn't seeing the flies that were doing it, because there certainly wasn't a lot of bee activity. So this fruit has a seed inside, fairly large. It's very juicy. It is astringent, so a lot of people don't like that tartness to it, but I do. And it looks kind of nice. Midsummer, all these red fruit on it, and then it does drop its leaves in the winter or in the late fall, so it will be leafless, and it has tiny yellow flowers in the spring. Blueberries.
Of course.
This happens to be a late variety called Elliot. It's one of the last to ripen, and big nice berries. A lot of farmers, commercial growers, don't grow this one because it's a late variety. They don't get as much for their berries. So
what's the commercial one? Is it blue crop mainly?
Blue crop. Yeah, the one that's really in demand is Duke.
Okay.
Like Duke is the earliest blueberry variety in this area to ripen. So the farmers really like to grow it, acres and acres of it, because they get the first one to market, they get the best price. This one, because it starts to ripen middle of August or so, they don't get as much for it because there's just a glut of berries at that time at the commercial processors.
You got raspberries behind that.
This is those are yellow. Some things are a little bit fried because of the 42 degrees Celsius temperatures.
Yeah, we had a heat wave.
Bad heat wave. And even though everything was watered daily, some stuff just couldn't handle those temperatures. That's why the raspberries don't look so good. They're a little bit fried and the berries are very small. This is an interesting plant. This is dead man's fingers, which is Decaisnea.
Okay. I don't think I know that one at all.
Yeah, so this plant produces long 3 to 4, maybe even up to 5-inch long sausage-like fruits, and they're bright metallic blue, like a blue purple, and they have knuckles, so that's where it gets its common name, dead man's fingers, and it has a very gelatinous inside, big seeds, but this white gelatinous sweet pulp. Very nice to eat. I like it. Kids of course love it because it does look like purple decaying dead man's fingers, appropriately named. I grow a lot of figs too. Probably I'm up to 7 or 8 varieties. The most common one for this area is, or the most popular 2 I'd say, would be Desert King, which is a green skin fig, and I do a lot of Brown Turkey, which is a purple, dark purple color figs, both juicy and sweet. But then I do some odd varieties too, for people that like to collect figs and have something a little different than the main 2. This is, I do a whole selection of currants. So Jostaberry, which is a cross between a green gooseberry and a black currant, has created this new fruit called Jostaberry. It's very dark in color, very sweet. Unlike the black currant parent, it has a nice sweetness to it, and it gets that from its green gooseberry parent. I use a lot of these trays now. I got these at IKEA, these shallow trays, because they hold just enough water to rehydrate the plants in the hot summer without drowning them.
Right.
Once you get into deep trays, they fill up too much and you'll get a lot of root rot. So this seems to be working, these more shallow trays.
That must have paid off in spades this week.
This week, that's why I think all the currant section is alive, because they were well hydrated. This one's an interesting one. This is one I grow because I happen to love the flavor. This is Chilean guava.
Chilean guava.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one I think I bought it one time, and I found the flavor really interesting.
Yeah, it's a creamy. It's hard to describe. I say like a banana, like a custard texture and flavor. Definitely a good fruit for people that like sweet fruits. The flower is this white little bell that's just opening here, and they'll be pollinated very shortly here, and then in August or so it'll be covered in these red fruits. Not big, they're like small blueberries, but they are super in flavor. Evergreen too. Now in this area they're on borderline for hardiness, so my big plants I throw in the garage for the winter, in a cold dark garage, and just make sure they don't dry out, but they stay evergreen in the garage. For people that have them in the garden, I recommend you put a garbage can upside down excuse me, on them, just to give them a little bit of wind protection for when the ground might be frozen. It helps them from drying out from excessive winds when they can't take up moisture from the soil.
So what do you figure on that, zone 9?
I think it is. I think it's rated for a zone 8, but it's not. I think they should rate it for zone 9, would be more accurate.
Okay.
Here's one too. This is another cane fruit. This is thornless Loganberry, which is, this is more appropriate, that color. They're like a long fruit. And the nice thing, again, thornless, which a lot of people with kids really appreciate. I have thornless raspberries too, a variety called Camby. So a lot of parents like to buy that one if they have little kids and they're worried about them encountering the thorns. Delicious. I'll let you taste some later, Jason.
Perfect.
Here's some of the currants I've propagated. Some of them got some heat damage this past week, but pink currants, white currants, black currants, red currants.
So just talking business for a second, percentages wise, just roughly, how much do you think you propagate yourself, and how much do you think you bring in?
I'm probably about 75% that I propagate, all the figs, all the different currant types, all the grapes. There's most of the raspberries. So most things I'm propagating myself in my tiny greenhouses. So it can be done. Some of the more unusual things are things that are grafted. I don't do, so I need to actually have professionals that do the grafting and bring those in.
Nice.
And these are an unusual fruiting tree that does well here. It's called Pawpaw, P-A-W-P-A-W. And I have now, I think, 5 or 6 varieties. And last year I got my first fruit, and they're the size of mangoes, and they're creamy custard and delicious. Again, not a common fruit here, and I don't know why, but I think they're gaining popularity. They're super hardy. They're from the east coast of the US and into southern Ontario near Point Pelee, so they are a native plant to Canada as well. And I think they're going to grow in popularity more and more as more people get a chance to taste the fruit. These are all the grapes, some of the grapes I do. Usually they're not so tangled and messy. You know, it's just the time of the year where they grow rapidly and it's hard to stake each one and tie each one up. So I tend to just get this mess, and in the fall I prune them back and make them more presentable. Okay, what did we not see? Here, I'll just show the apple trees here. So, these are a few of the super dwarf apples that I brought in from Similkameen. There's a wholesale nursery out in Similkameen. A friend of mine owns it. And they're all on super dwarf rootstock, which is the type of rootstock is called B9. So it really is the smallest rootstock you can graft a normal type of apple onto. Yeah, so I cut the tops off them. They're branching nicely now, and that's what you want. You want to establish a nice canopy on them. This one happens to be Macintosh. I also have Ambrosia left too. I started with about 8 different varieties, but being super dwarf for small gardens, they tend to sell quickly because that's the trend. Most people now aren't buying acreage. They can, in general, just afford smaller condos, smaller lots. So they need plants that don't take over the whole garden. This is something I propagate from cuttings. It's called Goji Berry. The picture is terrible, it's all faded out, but these are fluorescent orange fruit. Actually, there's some fruit forming on some of them. The fruit looks like this.
I'm just going to back out so I can get a focus. Perfect.
It's used a lot in smoothies. It has a lot of little seeds inside, these little tiny, it's like really small tomato. See? They're nice eating fresh, as well as you could make a jam with them if you want. This plant can be grown two ways. There's the summer flowers, nice ornamental purple flowers too. It can be grown as a vine, and I have one in my tree there that's about 25 feet tall, growing up a western red cedar tree. Or you can top it and keep it 5-6 feet high and grow it as a shrub, like a blueberry plant. That idea, have it about the same size so it won't take over the garden. I've done some air layering, which actually maybe, Jason, come on over here, I'll show you the air layering.
You bet.
Maybe some people have seen this before, but this is a technique for hard to propagate ornamentals. Things like figs that are easy, and grapes, you really don't need to go to this extreme. But I have problems with the gooseberries, as I mentioned earlier. So I use sphagnum moss. I make a cut on the side of the plant so it's wounded. Then I put some rooting hormone powder on the cut. Then I put moist sphagnum moss. Then I put this plastic bag and use twist ties so it's constantly moist. And after a year, when you have this on, most of these will root, and then I can sever it here and plant it in potting soil and have a new plant to offer.
When you say the sphagnum moss, you're talking about the long fiber stuff,
It's
right?
long, yeah. It's not powdery peat moss. That's no good. It needs to be long fiber, the kind you would use for a moss basket for the outside. So very porous, yet still hold a lot of moisture. And you know it's rooted when you can see the roots through the plastic. Here's a bit of horseradish.
Horseradish, nice.
It can be invasive.
You've got it in pots though.
It's always in pots. Even my big mature plant, this is comfrey here, but this is horseradish in the background with this thick, wide strap-like leaf. Yeah, watch it. Put it in a pot or put it in a part of the garden where you don't care if it spreads quickly. Horseradish, you can eat the foliage in salads. You can eat the flowers. You can harvest the root after the first frost. That's when it's the most pungent. Super easy to grow.
Nice. But you actually do a fair amount of spring business with seedlings and with veggies too, don't you?
Yes. That's my busiest time, of course, is March, April, and May. It's slow right now, but that's the nature of the business. But these are the tomatoes I grow. Like you, I think, are you still doing a lot of heritage tomatoes?
I'm kind of out of tomatoes now, just because the ornamental business has done really well for me.
Right.
But for you, the edible thing is just amazing.
It's because I specialize in edibles. It's nice to offer tomatoes. Like green grape is one of my favorites. A lot of people don't like the thought of eating a green tomato, but there are some varieties of heritage green tomatoes that are more sweet and more flavorful than yellow or red varieties, and this happens to be one that I like. It's a cherry tomato. Gets a bit of a yellowish hue when it's ready to eat and softens, but is still classified as a green tomato. These are fun to grow. These are ground cherries. They're in the tomato family, and you can see the fruit forming there. Here's the little flower, not very beautiful like sunflowers, but hey, we're after fruit here. So this is the fruit that quite often when you go to the keg or a fancy restaurant, they'll put one or two of these on your plate with your steak, and you peel the paper sheath and open it up, and you have this yellow orange fruit inside that's usually very sweet. This variety I grow is super sweet for jams and fresh eating. The one at the restaurant quite often is imported, and it's not quite as sweet as I'd like, but it's grown more for size of fruit rather than flavor. These are butternuts that got a little fried in the heat this past week. A lot of people would ask why you have your nut trees in a greenhouse at this time of year. It's because the squirrels come and there's still a part of the seed under the ground here, and they dig them all up and ruin the whole plant.
Oh wow.
And it takes an extra year. They have to be protected for 1 year before that seed, all that starchy part of the seed is totally disintegrated, so they won't come after the plants after that. So these are Cornus Kousa. So a little bit of heat damage in the greenhouse here this week. But this is Cornus Kousa, and a lot of people grow it only as an ornamental, but they're not aware that the big round fruits that they produce are super sweet. Yeah, there's some hard little seeds in there that you have to spit out, but for the sweet pulp that they produce, it's well worth it.
Well, you know, I'm going to say it's remarkable. Every corner we go around, there's more plants. You've got quite a collection here.
I've never counted, and I don't keep a running inventory, so I'm not very good that way. So whenever someone asks me if I have something, sometimes I have to come out and check. I'm not growing as many ornamentals as before. My focus is becoming edibles. So probably now 75% of the sales area is devoted to edible plants, and 25% will be ornamental flowering plants. But I think over the years, the next few years, it might dwindle right down, so it's only ornamentals.
Well, you and I are in opposite directions on that. I mean, you've specialized in the edibles, and I've specialized more in the ornamentals. And I have to say, it kind of makes sense from a customer point of view. If they start coming to you for the edibles, and then that's what you can advertise, and that's what your customers are looking for, then it benefits you to go with the edibles. And for me, the ornamentals seem to be what they're looking for. So it's not an issue of which one's better, although I have to say there's a good business in edibles. I can tell.
Yeah, like the way I look at it is people have to eat. They don't have to have beautiful plants, even though we all love looking at color and beautifying our gardens. But to survive, we have to have food. So that's why I made the decision. Who knows where this is going with the pandemic, now heat waves, this and that, who knows. So I like to have food security. I know I'm going to survive. If something really bad happens, and probably, Jason, you're going to want to come and visit me because I have lots of food for you.
All right, thank you so much, Mark. That was awesome. You know, I've got plenty of footage there. I might have to break it up into 2 videos to air it, but I really appreciate you showing us around your nursery and explaining a little bit about how your business works.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you coming and giving me a chance to let people see what I do. It's kind of interesting. I think most people like coming here. They get surprised when they show up and come down the driveway, and they didn't realize they offer so many different edibles. So I do appreciate this opportunity.